Hey, I'll show you how a camera works and how to be confident using those big things. I have actually one of my first students, I taught her really quickly how to use a camera, but she didn't know how to exactly use the manual and how it exactly works. So what I noticed is that she had confidence problems later because she did really big jobs and she was like really successful. But sometimes when it got to those small details, nerdy details, she was like freaking out. I'm not sure how it works, I don't know. And then her confidence dropped suddenly. And also like when lighting situations were very difficult, she was like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm doing it right. She was always checking the camera. So it helps with your confidence. I'll show you how to do it easily and how to know the nerdy stuff. It's complicated at the beginning because you need to learn three things at the same time. But once you understand it, it's super simple and it's easy and there's no problem. You'll just remember everything about it. But practice is the main key. This is a camera. It's a Nikon. Canon works the same. Every camera works the same. The only difference is the letters here will be different. There are three main things. And the whole point is to make sure that the level of the brightness is right. So the brightness needs to be right. That's always. You can create a photo, you can make it too dark, you can make it too light, and it always depends on what the settings are. Now I use auto, but not fully auto. I use my own version of auto, and that's mostly at daylight. And when it's nighttime, then I use half out, like a different auto. I'll explain. So here you have fully manual. Here you have aperture, which is the one I mostly use. And S and P, I'm not exactly remembering what those are, but they're not important. What I like in my photos, and the reason I bought a camera, is because I wanted always to have this bokeh in the background, right? This blurry background. So you make a portrait of someone, you have this blurry background. That's why I bought a camera. Otherwise, I'll still use my phone. Or this is the biggest difference you can see between a phone and a professional camera. Here's a photo, or underneath, there's a photo of exactly how a camera works, what their settings are. There are three components to get the right exposure, to get the right light balance, right? Not too dark. Exposure. This is the first word I need you to remember. Exposure. The right exposure. So you got three components. You got how much blur you got, which is the aperture, which basically means how much the lens is opening up. So here you can see it's very closed. So there will be less bokeh and everything will be sharp and there is less light coming in because you see it's very close. But once I open it, you see, and the more expensive lenses can open more. And the more open it is, the f number is lower. So this lens has an f of 1.4, as you can see here, which is really good. 1.2, that will be a lens of like 3000, 2000 or 4000, something like this. Right? You see the difference? So the more open it is, the more light can come in and the more there will be a difference between the focus point, my face for example, and the background. In an iPhone and in different phones, they fake it mostly, or sometimes like it's also faked and also not. It's a mix. So this is the most important. I leave it always on 1.4. I can shoot at night really good because I have a lot of light coming in. I always have a lot of light coming in. And with some less professional cameras, then you might need to close it a bit down once you see too much light and there's too much light during the day, but you will see it on the camera. If the photos are a bit overlighted, then you just close it a bit. Because the second thing is when you take a photo, there is like the sensor, what captures everything. It gets light for maybe 1 second or 1 millisecond or a very low number. So it's really fast. And the longer it gets light, the more light it will get and the more exposure you get. So for example, during the day, it will be super fast, especially on a sunny day. But during the night, it will be like maybe you put it on 100 of a second or 50 of a second. But when you start doing it as a 50, then you start seeing movement of the hands of people dancing, for example, at nightclubs, like this. And if you put it on 20, then you will faces will start to be blurry. And if you want to shoot the stars and stuff, then you need to hold your camera at the same place because we shake our hands. So you can start seeing that at 20 or 50. You see I have low battery, but you also see it's on f1.4, right? And you can see it's on 100. So this means that if I go outside now, it will be way too light. So I need to put it on 5000, 4000, something like this. So this is how fast it will capture everything. I'll show you also how it works. So now I'm gonna put it on 8000, which is the highest amount. And you can see it's super fast, right? Maybe you can see better so. Super fast. But once I put it on 100, maybe you can see the difference. You can hear the difference for sure. And if I put it on 20, and if I put it on 1 second, which looks like this, by the way, this is 1 second, and this is how it works. So I can show you the photos now. Of course, this is way too light, and you can see it gets darker. This is at the 8000. So now you know the difference, and when you shoot stars, you can do 30 seconds even, but you just need 15 seconds, and this is when you click again, so 30 seconds. So if you want to shoot stars, then you click for 30 seconds and you keep it on the ground so it doesn't move, nothing moves it. And then the only thing that can move is the stars, and they don't move really fast, so 30 seconds will be okay. So you got that. And then the last thing is, I'll put it back on the normal number, 300. The last thing will be ISO. So I use most of the time auto ISO, but I limit it to a certain number. What ISO does, it adds grain to the photos, and grain we don't like. Sometimes we like, but we prefer to add it in post, because the grain of those cameras is really looking bad. Grain is those dots, by the way, those ugly dots. It makes the photos basically a bit ugly. Only if you do it with nostalgic film, then it's beautiful, but otherwise not. Yeah, so the more grain you get, the more light you can capture, or it ruins the photo kind of. But the more light you can get, and the more expensive your camera, the more grain you can add without it ruining the photo. So I can go to 1000 without seeing a difference. And I mean, the lowest number will be, I don't know what it is, but 64 will be the lowest official number. And other than that, it's like a manipulation, I guess. But 64, and then goes till 1000. I use it till 3000 or 4000 if I'm very desperate. But 3020 to 3200 is the max I would use it usually. And that's in low light situations, or when I really need it. Otherwise I'll keep it on 100. I have it on auto. My camera knows how to do it good. Some cameras maybe know how to do it less good, but I think usually they know how to do it really good. So those are the three things. So the less grain, the less ISO, the less grain, the more the image will be beautiful. The more ISO, the more dots you will see, the more ugly dots you will see in the shadows, and it will look quite bad, the less the quality of the photo. A good camera has a huge difference between the light and the shadows, right? So a bad camera will have really, film photos have really short, it's a different topic, and it's not really a big deal, but it's not complicated also. It's just the difference between the highlights, the highest points, and the shadows, and there's a lot of gray in between, or a lot of shades. And the more ISO you have, the shorter it becomes. So we always like to keep it at 100 or at the lowest, so we don't have any effects. The cheaper cameras are less good with ISO. So I remember when I had a cheaper camera, it cost like 500 euros. With this camera cost. So when I had a cheaper camera, I could go with my ISO till 500. So maybe 600. It wasn't so much. So here I have much more options. I can shoot much more better in low light. So if you want to shoot manual, I shoot usually at A, which decides what aperture it chooses. If it doesn't go under 200, then there's no problem. I wouldn't notice it. If it does, then I will switch it to manual, because then it means it's dark enough. And you can use auto. Why I don't like using auto? Because it changes the F, and I don't want the F to change. I want it always to be blurry. I know how to blur the things myself. And I mean, I know how to, you just need to know how to select the object, right? To put the focus point, you put it on the object. So now it should be on me. So if you know how to do it, you don't need it to choose for you. I like to have it on f1.4 always. That's why I use aperture, so it doesn't touch it at all. So the most important is that you know how to use manual, and study this photo that I put underneath, because this helped me so much. You will forget what I say. You just go back to the photo. You understand what I say, so you will just go back to the photo. You see, oh yeah, this is this and this and this. I remember, once you know that, it's super easy. Download this photo to your phone, and then every time you're on a photo shoot, you can remember exactly what to do. Challenge yourself. Go to shoot in the night, go to shoot the stars, go to shoot maybe even city lights, those beautiful neon city lights. I used to do those a lot when I was working at clubs. I used to shoot the outside also of it, people standing in line, it's beautiful. Hey, and I will show you also how to actually use it on the camera itself, how it looks like, where the buttons are. And I have two cameras, so I can show you on two cameras, but Nikon and all the other cameras work basically the same. So here it is. Open the camera, and then here, this changes the shutter speed. So how much time it will be open here, what I showed you before. Super simple, 100 start to be shaky. 250, it will mostly never be shaky unless you move a lot. So 300 is always safe. So this is how you change this. Here I have another slider. And this is to change the f-stop. And then here I have ISO. So when I click here, I can change the ISO. And when I change it here, then it's auto ISO. Same thing on my other camera, which is, so ISO you got here. It says ISO. ISO I can change here. Here I change, here I change this. It's all the same. And here I can change how much light I want inside. Here I tell it how much light is good for the auto. So if I want it to be darker, then I choose -20, -2. And if I want it to be lighter, super easy, super simple. Hope that helps. Cheers.